All right, folks. As I always say, please give me a second. I want to make sure that we're streaming appropriately on all the various platforms: X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, everything but CNBC. I think we're on at this point. For those that are watching on the various platforms, please do me a favor, like and repost. If any of you want to ask questions during this roughly hour-long conversation, don't hesitate to post on whatever social media platform you are on. We can see your comments. Let's make this as interactive as possible. I have been trying to get Kenan on one of these podcasts for some time. He's built a hell of a following on YouTube, which, believe me when I say, it's extremely difficult to do. He's got some killer content, has a really good way of communicating and getting people interested in markets, how to think about generating wealth. When we talk about that. My name is Michael Gayed. This is the High Conviction Podcast. My friend and co-host, Mr. Will Rhind, is here. Will, go ahead.
Hey everyone, Will Rhind here, founder and CEO of GraniteShares. We're an ETF issuer focusing on high conviction ETFs, about $9 billion, headquartered here in the US, in Manhattan, but with a business in Europe and distribution into Asia.
And of course, Mr. Kenan Grace. Kenan, introduce yourself to the audience and to us a little bit more formally. Who are you? What's your background? What have you done throughout your career? What are you doing currently?
So what's going on, everybody? I'm Kenan Grace, and I often say trade with the chart and not with your heart. That's a phrase that I wear. You might be wondering what this hat is for, and it's literally trade with the chart and not with your heart. So when I come to work, I always remember to do that. So what I used to do was I used to be a public school teacher. I taught for 7 years. 6 technically. One of the years was basically training that I had to pay for, but I was actually literally a teacher. I taught biology, ecophysiology, and then I also taught engineering, electrical engineering, and structural engineering. But I've since retired, started a business online, started a business offline, and now I'm doing well. And I teach others how to make money on the market. I am a 7-figure investor. I've made over 7 figures just this year alone. And it's not even, the year's isn't even out yet, trading and investing. I have 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. I've been on Forbes. I've been on Fox Business multiple times. I've been on the NASDAQ multiple times. And I teach at KGU, Kenan Grace Stock Market University for the Gifted, which is hosted on Discord and Patreon. So you'll get to know me, my trading strategies, stocks that I like, and the sectors and things that I care about currently.
Amazing. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming on. Maybe a good place to start is, how did you go from teaching public school to teaching investing?
So very interesting question, right? So with me, I've always been in a space where I wanted to be better. And so coming up, I'll let everybody know right now. So everybody got a sad story. Everybody has whatever story that people like to cry about or whatever. And, you know, sometimes we really do got to think about those things. But coming from rough backgrounds, you got to think it's not about where you're from. It's about where you're going. So where I wanted to go was to be financially free and be financially independent. I didn't want to have bosses over my head and I had to ask to go to the bathroom. I didn't want to have just days where I'm sick and I got to make sure I got enough sick days. So then I have to go into work even though I'm sick. I didn't want to have those things. And I wanted to be not even financially free. I wanted to be financially invincible. Now, how do I get myself there? I needed to amass enough capital so that I could live off of the interest of the capital. And I've since thought about taking it another level, which is selling options with the capital that I have. So that makes it even better. But I learned in about 2015, 16, this is when I got more serious about getting into the game. And if you didn't know, I'm 33 years old. So I got more serious into the game because I realized that a lot of the people who I might have grown up looking up to, like people who were athletes or people who were in music or anything like that. And I realized that as soon as they are done with the music or they're done being athletes, they blow all of their money. And then I started to see people online and they didn't have the income of these athletes or musicians or anything, but they were able to grow their money. So then I saw Bill Gates, and I think he had like $50 billion at the time. And I'm thinking, wow, and he's retiring from Microsoft. I guess he doesn't have to work anymore. I'm thinking like almost like a consumer. And I see that he's making money from working. This is where he got the $50 billion from. But then I see years go on and now he's worth 70, 80, 90 billion. I'm like, wait, but he stopped working at Microsoft. What happened? His investments are growing. He didn't have to work for this money. It wasn't a salary. So then my whole mind frame changed, and I see that the people at the top, they're not just working and trading their time for money. They are putting their money to work for them. So they don't have to work. You technically can't even work as hard in 24 hours as your money can work. So since we learned things like this, I seen that becoming a millionaire, it wasn't magic. You didn't have to pull a rabbit out of a hat. You didn't have to find the best stock ever and get in at the bottom. You didn't have to buy Bitcoin at $1. What you needed was consistency. So then I just devised myself what they would call a millionaire plan. And I'll tell you it right here. I'll give everybody who's watching this a little context. So if you were to invest, and this is a tool that I want everybody to have. It's on Google. It's free. It's called the investment calculator. Google that. Go to it. You're going to put a starting amount. Let's say you're 30 years old. You're going to retire at 65. So you got 35 years. The average rate of return on the stock market for the last 100 years or so has been like 10%. So let's go with 9%. If you put in $380 for that 35 years consistently, which is $95 a week, you will retire with over $1 million, having only invested $159,000. There's going to be $863,000 of pure investment capital, just gains on your investment. So becoming a millionaire is about consistency. So once you get that plan of consistency, that $95 a week, and you're going to stick to that as your base plan, now your goal is to see how you could do it faster. But at a minimum, you have a base plan. And this is something that I teach along with trading stock options.
So there's a lot I want to unpack on this. What got you interested in markets to begin with? I mean, was it something you always were aware of, something that you had a friend of yours? I mean, how'd you make that pivot?
It's funny that you asked that, right? So how I made that pivot was I was looking to buy a home. So then I started to save, pay down credit card debt. And then I had a lump of money, and I was thinking, what can I do with this in order to grow it, right? How do people grow their money? So then I learned that people invest into the S&P. They invest in individual stocks. They might put money in bonds and try to be safer that way. So then I started nice and simple, and I just started buying Apple. And man, the one thing about Apple stock, every time I think about it, every single year it comes up, I'm like, man, I wish I would have bought more of it. I'm not telling anybody to go and buy Apple now, right? Don't FOMO in, but every single year, I'm talking about, this is when it was like $50 a share compared to today's current share count. So, and I just bought a little bit, and I see my money just going up and up and up. So then I started to invest more heavily into the S&P. So I had to be diversified out of individual companies, but it was important for me to see some of that growth. And then once I saw it for myself, I got online. And then I always say my mission was pure, meaning when I got online to teach investing, I didn't get online to make money. So then people gravitated towards me. And then I started to make money online from doing that as well. That plus the investing, I was able to retire from being a teacher. I think I retired when I was 29 or 30. I was 29 or 30, but I was well off, beyond well off at that point.
What did you teach?
So I taught biology the first year, and then I taught ecophysiology, which is kind of like outdoors biology. And then I taught engineering, electrical engineering and structural engineering.
Nice. And were you investing or were you saving sort of during that time?
Yeah. So it started off with probably how most people start off with, right? You might run into Dave Ramsey online, right? I don't know if you guys are a fan of Dave or not, but most people run into him first. He's like, I don't know, the internet's like gateway into investing. You come in, you're thinking about money, you're going to run into Dave some way. So I was thinking, okay, yeah, I got all this debt. I should pay off some of this debt. I had like $13,000 in credit card debt. So what I went and did was, I'm a person who's extremely practical. And oftentimes people will try to make a plan that they can't stick to, and then they destroy themselves. So since I had $13,000 in credit card debt all on one credit card, I went and did a balance transfer to like 5 different credit cards. But I made a plan of paying the credit down before the interest, 0% interest rate was going to be up. So I had like 16 or 18 months to do so. So then I divided that 13,000 by that time that I had, and then I had to put like maybe $500 or $300 a month towards it. And then once I got that done, and I just had all this money or that I could allocate now towards investing, So then I was thinking, okay, boom, now it's time to put that money towards investing. And I was doing this while I was also teaching. So I was doing this for maybe 5 years while I was teaching. And then I realized that, okay, by I think my date was 2033 or 2034, I was going to be a millionaire at the rate that I was going, because my money was growing. I was starting to get raises and doing extra things like extracurriculars and like coaching and things like that. So then I was going to be a millionaire. I was like, wow, if I can do it, then anybody can do it. It's just going to take consistency. And most people, I call it TikTok brain. Most people have TikTok brain nowadays where they can't see the future. This is 2024. And back in 2016, I was thinking about 2034. So I know people in 2024, that's 10 years away. You can do it. You can really make it happen for yourself. You just got to be able to just think long term.
Were you aware of other teachers doing the same thing, or did you feel like you were the only one that was doing this?
So I was the only one that was doing it. Now, there were many teachers, and it's funny, right? As soon as you get a job, like a 9-to-5 job, and I started my career, so I have a master's degree in education. And as soon as I had a job before I actually was done with the program. So once I got into the job and I got my first paycheck, I kid you not, the guys doing like 403Bs, they were right knocking at the door as soon as I got paid that first time. And I didn't understand it because this was like 2014 or so. 2014, 15. I didn't understand it at the time. And they were trying to get me, and like money managers, to invest into the 403B account. And I told them, all right, guys, just get back to me. Just get back to me. And then I don't know. But I didn't have any understanding of it, even though I had a master's degree. They don't teach this stuff in just traditional education. You'll never learn it. You'll get all the way to the point where you have money now, or you're bringing in an income, and you don't know much about saving. You don't know much about budgeting. You don't know much about compound interest. You definitely don't know how to assess an individual company. So they're coming to me and they're telling me, okay, you should do this with your money. I was thinking, whoa, just too much. Give me some time. And then I think a few months went by, and then I actually did start to invest into that 403B plan. And then since I've left school, then I have some of that money sitting in this account, but I plan on getting it out soon.
Were you familiar with a book called The Millionaire Teacher?
No, I am not.
So it's kind of a funny story. When I was up, travel for business around the world, and I met a Singaporean teacher, and we are just talking about like the difference between teaching in the UK or the US or over in Singapore. And one of the things that stood out to me was when they went to the school, first of all in Singapore, somebody gave them this book, which is called The Millionaire Teacher, and just said, right, read this. It tells you everything you need to know. And, the sort of philosophy around it is basically one of like saving to invest. But it's just interesting, that sort of mentality of, you're working as a teacher, but here's how you achieve, financial freedom, financial independence, above and beyond the job that you get paid to do every day.
Right. That's very important to be able to do. And a lot of people, like, for example, my colleagues as a teacher, they weren't so focused on their financial responsibility themselves, because in public school teaching, in if not all states in the United States, but most, at least on the East Coast, you get promised a pension. Whether they're going to be able to keep it because they're working for the state, we'll see. But you get promised a pension, and it's actually a pretty good one. But I'm never the type of person that likes to rely on things like that are going to be promised to me in however many years. I like to do it myself. And if I do get that, then that's just a bonus, because I often think about how, if I'm getting paid by the government, how is the government doing with their own money? So then I look up things and I say, okay, what is the national debt right now? Just to get a broad understanding, right? Nothing general, or just completely general. $35 trillion in debt. The United States is basically in $35 trillion of debt nationally. That's like $106,000 per every individual who is a citizen. That's absolutely insane. And then this 35 trillion is projected by the Congressional Budget Office to be about 50, if not $55 trillion in 10 years from now. So I could only imagine 30 years from now, the house of cards could crumble down, and I can't bet on that myself. I have to make sure I put my money into things that I believe will grow. The United States dollar, who knows what's going to happen with that in terms of growing? It could, or in terms of holding value. So I like to put my money in companies. I like to put my money in ETFs, for example, and honestly, some crypto. I'm allocating more towards crypto now than I have in the past.
I think the pension argument is a good one, but how much do you think, and maybe this comes into what you're doing now, how much of it is also people's kind of fear of not knowing what to do, and sort of this idea that investing is very complicated, it's inaccessible, how do I get started? How much of it is that sort of fear of not really know how to get started?
I would say almost all.
Yeah.
Almost all. Basically, on a percentage, I say maybe 90%, 95% of people who aren't investing now, it's due to fear. But that fear is actually stopping them from their biggest asset, which is time. Time in the market is really what's going to make you as rich or financially free as you want to be. And it's so, and you guys would know this, but it's so much of a big deal that if you were to just take 10 years off and start 10 years later, you might have millions of dollars less than you would have had if you would have just started 10 years earlier. So the people who are thinking about investing today and you haven't done so, you're thinking about finding professionals to help you, then hey, you got two right here. I say reach out if you haven't done so already, because it is really time to get into the game, and do not let fear stop you. I was talking to one of my guys, a business partner of mine. His name is Josh, and he was saying that when you let fear be your guide, you are not living up to your full potential. And if you are letting fear stop you from investing, then you're not living up to your full potential. It's time for you to say, okay, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of losing money? Okay, now you're a step forward. Now you at least could identify the fear. You're afraid of losing money. How do people lose money on the market? You may have seen movies where people may have gotten scammed. That's a way that people could lose money. You may have seen movies where people have lost it all in one day. How did they lose it all in one day? Did the market turn to zero in one day, or were they in some stock options that were super risky? And that's how they lost it. So what you're doing is you're undercovering, or you're in a position of uncovering what are the fears that you have. And if you see, okay, you can lose it all in a day. Okay, maybe you don't put all of your money in a 0 day to expire stock option. Maybe you don't do that. Maybe you don't put all of your money into a hype cryptocurrency. Maybe you don't do that. What has been growing consistently? The S&P 500, a lot of these funds, indexes, ETFs, right? A lot of things like that have been growing consistently. Okay, so maybe then this is the direction that you go. And you can still learn to do options and learn about crypto and other various avenues of getting into equities. However, if you let fear stop you, you will lose your biggest resource, which is time. And some people say, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be here in 20, 40, 50 years. You got to bet on yourself. I'm betting on myself. I'm going to be here in 100 years. And I'm going to bet that I'm going to be here in 100 years. And guess what? I'm going to move as if I keep investing, my trees are going to keep growing, and then I'll be able to eat fruit from them in retirement.
Kenan, you mentioned you investing in things that you believe will grow. All right, so let's talk about how you identify things that can be big growers. I mean, I see on your YouTube channel, you've got some individual stock ideas and things like that, but what's your process for identifying stocks?
Okay, so what I do is I keep it to percentages. I often say you need to keep at a minimum, right? And this is my opinion. I can't tell anybody what to buy, hold, or sell, but this is what has worked for me, and this is what I teach, what works for me. Anywhere between 60 and 80% of your money, depending on your risk tolerance and age, in ETFs or indexes. That's what I think, 60 to 80%. Now, most people that encounter me, what they want to do is find out about the next NVIDIA or find out about the next Apple from the 80s. What is that going to be? But then I tell you, you're not going to be able to be a good trader if you don't build the foundation. Some of these stocks, like NVIDIA, for example, people who have been in them and who have really been thinking about them longer than the last 2 years know that NVIDIA, it wasn't just a straight shot. It was a complete roller coaster the whole time. And then it recently started to just be a straight shot. So how do you make it so you can stay and stand the heat? You can't handle the heat if your foundation is weak. So I would have 60 to 80% in ETFs or indexes. And then I would start to maybe put that last 20% or so into an individual company that has a high growth rate potential in terms of the market that they are in. So I'm looking for market leaders, right? Like NVIDIA is a clear market leader. Like the number 2 company, number 3 companies like Intel and AMD, they're not even in the same league as NVIDIA. However, they can be great winners too. They just might not win the same way that NVIDIA might. So when I see these companies who are industry leaders, like NVIDIA, for example, and then I look at the industry and I look at the compound annual growth rate of the market that they're in, and I say, okay, NVIDIA's market, the AI market, is projected to grow like 19 to 37% or so every single year for like the next 5 years to a decade. So then I say, okay, the market is getting bigger. Now, I want to go and look at some of the fundamentals, at least to start. So I wrote some of them down. For NVIDIA, the forward PE, a lot of people like to look at the PE, but the forward PE is telling you at least what they're kind of projecting is for NVIDIA. Let me see. I wrote it down. It is 49, right? Still kind of high-ish, but for a high grower like NVIDIA, then I'm willing to be able to pay for something like that. So if I ever see NVIDIA again under the $100 level, it's currently 140, then I would really go extremely heavy on NVIDIA, but I would never go so heavy that it's way more than 20% in my overall portfolio. So I like to look at the forward PE, and I like to look at the price to sales and compare it to the industry that they're in. So there's many ways to kind of skin a cat when you're looking at individual companies. But then for everybody who's watching this, if I'm talking in ways that you don't understand and you want to start investing, just stick to an index, stick to an ETF, build your foundation out just with that. And then you move on to step 2. I'm kind of like step 2, where now once you've built that foundation out, you're looking for individual companies that can make you some money. Tesla's one that I made a whole lot of money on. Amazon's one, I think I might have made the most money on Amazon of any of the stocks that I have. Meta is one that I'm looking at right now, but I do want to speak on Microsoft too. Microsoft has a forward PE of about 32 right now, and they are looking into cryptocurrency. I know they're kind of trying to encourage their shareholders to kind of vote against it, but the fact that a company as conservative as Microsoft with their investments is even considering it is really, really saying a lot. So I am starting to put more money into cryptocurrency, but I wouldn't put any more than 5 to 10% of my net worth in cryptocurrency, particularly Bitcoin. I will never put a substantial amount into a hype crypto, but I would keep the hype crypto to a really, really not even 1% of a portfolio for me personally. But I hope I answered your question with that. I'm looking at the fundamentals of a company, and then I want to identify if it is a trade, which sometimes I get into trades, meaning I'm in and out. And sometimes I look at investments long term.
And do you also look at the themes behind it? So you mentioned obviously within that you've got cryptocurrencies, you've got AI, you've got EVs in the case of Tesla, and AI as well. But do you look at the themes and then sort of go from there top down, or do you tend to look at the companies more and go bottom up?
So I actually heard a really, really powerful. It's powerful to me. You guys let me know, but I was watching an interview yesterday with Jeff Bezos from a while ago, and Jeff Bezos being the founder of Amazon.com. And he was saying, when you're looking at companies and you're thinking about disruptors, like a company that can be disruptive, everybody wants to say this is disruptive, that's disruptive, and some things are. But how do you know if it's going to be disruptive or not? It's not if the company invented something new that can work. They're not the real disruptors. It's customer adoption that is the disruptor. So oftentimes we look at Bitcoin, for example. I think this might be one of the easiest. Bitcoin, basically the customers are people who own the Bitcoin or own any Bitcoin. We have all basically adopted it, right? We even see Fortune 500 companies adopting it and Microsoft considering it. Now, there are cryptocurrencies that are technically, when you look at the blockchain and look at the technology, they're better and more useful than Bitcoin. However, they won't disrupt the space if people don't adopt it. So what I want to say is, just like Jeff Bezos was saying, when you hear about disruptors, don't just think about, okay, this can do a great thing. Think about, will people adopt it, and are people adopting it? Because that's the disruption.
Interesting. That's a good way to look at it, in terms of the customer, rather than necessarily the technology or the patents or anything behind it.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned options a little bit earlier. How much do you play with options? I mean, how much of the sort of excess performance you've had has been driven by options trading? Let's talk about that for a bit.
Yeah. So stock options, for those of you that don't know, there are calls and there are puts, right? A quick way, and we're thinking about just buying options for now. Selling options is different. We're thinking about buying options for now. What someone told me to remember about options for those who are new is call up, right? You call somebody up, but then when you're done, you put the phone down. So if you want to make money on a call, you calling up. If you want to make money on a put, you put down. So you make money on the way down when you buy a put. So with that being said, most people didn't really know that you could actually make a whole lot of money when the stock market is actually not performing well, when the stock market is going down. So what I started to do was trade on my live streams. And I was telling you guys, I run a company. It's called KGU, Kenan Grace Stock Market University for the Gifted. And I trade live in my private community. And I show everybody while the charts are moving. And I trade SPY often, but I also trade individual stocks. But you can make money on the way down. All you really need in trading is a clear direction, but you need that risk management piece. You need that risk management piece when you're trading. Now, trading is completely different than investing. Investing is like planting a seed and then you water it sometimes, let the sun hit it, watch it grow, right? Just let it be. Trading is actually like trading those seeds for different amounts of money. Okay, seeds cost $3 today, they cost $4 today, they cost $5 today. You're not trying to plant this seed at all. You don't want to hold on to it for too long. You want to get money and then get the seed and then get money and get the seed and just keep making more. So I've made a substantial amount of money actually trading options. And even there was one day where I had made, I want to say like $16,000 in a day. I just bought a Tesla call. It was like 5 minutes. It was like 5 minutes. I jumped into a Tesla call, and this is around the time that they split. And I think they split maybe a few times, but maybe in the last split was like 2021 or 2022 or so. But I jumped into a call, and then it went up maybe in 5 minutes to like $16,000. And I think I was up like 900%. It's just the timing of trading that seed and then getting the cash and then just rinsing and repeating. So when you learn these things, you learn to have a limited downside, and then your upside could almost be unlimited depending on what you're doing. But again, options trading, I teach it basically every Tuesday and Thursday, and then I also have classes that I teach for it as well.
So what are your kind of go-to investments? You know, we talked about ETFs, index funds, options, single stocks. Are any others that are you sort of within your kind of go-to portfolio?
Yeah. So what I like to do is, like I was saying, 60 to 80% in ETFs. The one that I primarily invest in currently, and I've been doing this one for years, is VOO, which is Vanguard's S&P 500 index, or ETF, which is basically tracking S&P 500, like I just said, but it has a lower expense ratio than SPY. So it's basically like the SPY. And I trade SPY, but I invest in VOO. So if I make money on VOO, or if I make money trading SPY, I'll put it in and park it into VOO with the understanding that I'm not going to take it out of VOO basically until I retire. And then my plan in retirement is to do two things. Sometimes I'm going to take like 3% of my net worth out and live off of that. But then also I might just sell cover calls and puts. So this is going to supplement my retirement. But I'm well into a point where I could do that, but I just find it so fulfilling to help other people to make money that I just keep going.
With your current business, what's your kind of vision for it? I mean, are you thinking, to take this sort of as far as you can go? Like what are your current thoughts on that?
Right. It's funny you ask. So I was talking to some of my business partners, and we were sitting there, we were in Dallas, Texas, and we were thinking, like, who would have thought that we would be where we are today? You go back 10 years ago, go back even 5 years ago, and you think, who would have thought that you would be here today? And none of us would have thought we'd be here today. So then I say, well, if this was unbelievable, then we need to shoot for something else that could be unbelievable too. So I want to take what I'm doing to $1 billion. I want to take it to $1 billion plus. And it sounds unbelievable, but you asked me 5 years ago if what I'm doing is unbelievable, I tell you absolutely. So then I want to shoot all the way for the stars. So let's say that I don't get there and I end up with 100 million. Oh, dang, right? I didn't get my billion, but I think I'll be okay. So then I'm shooting for the stars with it, and I want to help as many people as possible. And I know that that's going to be the way to be able to do it. And it's all about the amount of people that you can be useful to, right? So I try to make myself as useful to as many people as possible. And that is where the real key is. Kind of like when you guys are working with any kind of clients that you may have, and you may charge a fee for working with them, but then you say, but working with me, when you see the money that you have after your work with me, you're not even going to think about this fee. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to be a person who multiple or as many people as can happen encounter, they work with me, and then they see their money grow.
What I find interesting about your story is that you're not like one of these guys that came in after COVID. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's what you hear about. It's like, oh, the retail came in after COVID, and they're the ones doing the gunslinging as far as the options trading and making money and getting crushed. You see these Reddit posts of people that are like wearing it like a badge of honor. I lost $500,000 today. Oh well, like okay. So let's talk about kind of pre-COVID retail education versus post-COVID retail education. I mean, that seems like there was a line in the sand in terms of participation in markets.
Right.
How different have things been in terms of your audience, your reach, the types of people that find your stuff?
So I started making videos and posting them. I was making videos in like 2018 and 17, but I started posting videos in 2019, which is basically right before COVID. So then I'm posting online, and I'm showing people how to invest, how to buy through whatever brokerage you want to use, how to get a fractional share if you don't have enough money for a whole share. And so pre-pandemic, there were so much more interest, I'll say, in education and learning. Post-pandemic, I gotta admit, it's hype. It's just a lot of hype. People are just like, it's almost like the difference between motivation and discipline. So pre-pandemic, I would say the audience base was more disciplined, where, all right, I'm ready to be consistent. I'm ready to show up. It's not about intensity. It's about just discipline and consistency. But now it's much more about intensity. The people who are getting followers nowadays, the people who are getting a lot of views nowadays, a lot of new clients nowadays, are the people who are promising you that they're going to give you 100% return in at least a week. So then even if it's not true, you very likely already paid them, and now you're out that money that you paid them and you don't get the results. So what I try to do is completely combat that and show you that you can get yourself the results by being consistent. But I do recognize that we're in a world where people are looking, like I said, TikTok brain. They just, that instant gratification hit that they're looking for. They want to make sure they can return 100%. So there was a story that I heard recently from Jack Ma of Alibaba, and he was saying it's a story about a monkey in the zoo. So the zookeeper had $100 bill, and he had a banana. He sat it in front of the monkey, and he says, okay, monkey, you pick one. The monkey picks the banana, because the monkey doesn't understand that $100 could buy a whole lot of bananas. He can't see it. He can't understand it. And the analogy with this one was, when you tell people that you can make a lot of profits from investing your money, or you could just stick to your 9 to 5 and work it until you're 90 years old. This is what people think is hard work, is just working at 9 to 5. And they won't pick to step into the arena of choosing that $100, because you know what? That's not going to, the monkey can't eat the $100 right now. He's not thinking about that. So then you want to think to yourself, what can I do to make it so I'm not so much thinking about just the salary that I earn right now? I'm thinking about the profits and capital gains that I can get from also investing. Now, if you use that investment calculator I told you about earlier on Google, you can see that at a certain point of your investing journey, it might be 20 years from now, it might be 15 years from now, who knows? But your investments are going to probably supersede what you earn in a salary. And then that's that point that I'm talking about. But you'll never get there if you don't start soon. If you don't really start now, to be honest with you, you got to start. You're never going to get there until you really start. The journey of 1,000 miles, it starts with a single step.
No, well said. It's one of these things where time flies. so quickly. And if you don't get on something, and you keep kidding yourself that, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do it next week, next year, got plenty of time for that, I'm not going to retire until I'm 60, etc. It quickly catches up with you, and you realize that sort of every day counts in terms of that compounding of return.
It does. I was talking to a friend of mine, and if she's watching this, no disrespect, I'm just bringing up a story. I won't drop no names, but she was telling me that she wanted to start investing in 2020, like a whole lot of people did during the pandemic. Like people were getting stimulus checks and so on, and they wanted to they were just interested in the market. So even back then, they knew I was doing stock market content. So they said, "Hey, Kenan, could you help me out?" And I said, "Okay. What you're gonna do is think about how much money you can invest a month. I can invest $300 a month." I said, "Okay, cool. Cut that in half. $150 a month, because you never know what can happen. If something happens, you still want to at least have your base investment invested. So $150 a month, you do that. This is 2020. Put it in VOO. This is what I'm saying. Put it in VOO, right? Look into it. I can't tell you what to buy. I'm not your financial advisor, but this is what I am doing." I talked to her last month. "Hey, how's that going?" I didn't start. "Why didn't you start?" Didn't want to put her social security number into the brokerage app when it asked. And I was thinking to myself, you let that stop you? And the reason that they're asking you is so simple to me. Even if you have no understanding of any of the list of papers they might be sending you, in order to own something legally, it has to be in your name. If you own a house, it's in your name. An apartment is in your name. Your car is in your name. What does that really mean? That you gave them your social security number, so legally it's under you. If you own some Apple shares and they look up the whole list of everybody who owns Apple, your name's going to pop up because Apple is partially in your name. Microsoft is partially in your name. You own some of it, kind of like owning real estate or owning a home. So when I heard that she didn't invest because they asked for a social security number, I was thinking again, this is fear being your leader, when this fear was easily squashed with just an ounce of research.
Amazing. What other excuses do you hear as typically reasons why people don't do something or don't invest?
Investing is just gambling. It's just gambling. That's what it is. Well, if there's no guarantee, then it's a gamble. And I'm thinking, wait, if there's no guarantee, it's a gamble. But if you want to look at it like gambling, I could say the same. I could say that you're gambling by not investing because of the opportunity cost that you're missing out on. You're going to miss out on all of the gains that you had. So it was funny. I did an event last year in December, and I had donated like $30,000 to childhood cancer. And at this event, I was trying to just teach everybody who was in the crowd there, who showed up to support. And I was teaching them that it's very unlikely. This is what I say, right? I like to believe in my own ability and myself because I'm reasonable, but I'm also a great risk manager. Anybody that is earning whatever I earn won't make what I make. They won't. And they said, why? Why is that? If I'm making 100,000, you're making 100,000, I'm making $1 million, you're making $1 million, we're making the same amount of money, right? No, because you won't invest it like me. You won't. So then you're making $1 million, and then you look at my return, and the S&P is up 20%. Now you got that 1 million, I got 1.2. Oh, I'm beating you again. You're gonna have to work 20% harder to try to catch up to me, and I'm working just as hard as you, but I'm making more money because I learned to invest it, even at any scale. At any scale. If you are a plumber, if you are a nurse, if you are a doctor, if you are an accountant, or anyone watching this, you stack boxes at Amazon, you need to think the same thing. You need to believe in yourself and say, nobody stacking boxes is going to be making much money as me, because I'm going to make my money and then I'm going to invest. You need to say, nobody who's an accountant is going to be making as much money as me. I own this firm and then I'm going to, you got to think like that, because if you do, it's almost like you got to be so much in, I don't want to say delusion, but you want to be so much into a belief into your own ability that you don't just think you can do it. You think you can do it, but then you have a secret weapon, which is your ability to look for someone who did it already, someone who will teach you books, things that will help you. Like, for example, Will just asked me if I ever heard of The Millionaire Teacher. Never heard of it, but I promise you I wrote it down. Whenever somebody drops information on me or drops a gem on me, I'm downloading it, to my resource book. I'm downloading it to my psychology, and then I'm going to know more than I knew before. I don't know everything, but I know that my ability and thirst for knowledge is going to take me. So then the things that I believe aren't delusional. They can happen, or at least I can approach them happening.
Have like old childhood friends or colleagues, former teachers, have they seen your success and treated you differently because of that? Because you really obviously pulled away, right? You mentioned the rough upbringing, right? I mean, I got to assume that's not exactly easy, but kind of comes with the territory.
Right. Yeah. So I've always been a pretty private person, believe it or not, right? Like I'm on the internet. You're like, how the heck are you private? You talking about money?
I'm with you, man. I hate X. I've got 755,000 followers, and I'm an introvert. I do not want to be on social media at all. I really don't.
Right. But it's just such a good resource that you just can't help it. So with that being said, the people who in the past, some people try to like ask me nowadays, but then what I had to do personally was I honestly used to have I used to invest too much time into people who weren't ready yet. And that might seem like, wait, what do you mean? You need to try harder with them. Yeah, but I'm a businessman and my time is very valuable. So I need to have like a barrier between the people who aren't ready and the people who are, so that I can know. So then what I would tell people is this, and if you're watching this and I told you this, no disrespect, but I just need to know that you're serious. And I respect you when you show me that you're serious, the same way that you respect me when I show you that I'm serious. I say, I need to, at a minimum, see that you transferred that money that you have in this general bank account into a high yield savings account and show me 3 months of your money growing at a faster rate in a high yield savings account. Nothing crazy, but I just needed a barrier between people who, all right, you didn't even do that yet. Okay. So you're not serious about this. You don't have to be active when you transfer money from a regular savings account to a high yield savings account. It's not active. It's just showing me that you're serious. And if you feel the same way you did in 3 months and you actually did it, then I know that I can invest time into you. And the reason that, again, that I had to do that was I don't know how many, and you guys probably had this happen, how many countless people that you may have talked to and they were feeling super motivated on day one, but then days go by and the stock market's coming down a little bit and they're losing the motivation. No, I'm not looking for people who are motivated now. I'm looking for people who are ready to be disciplined. These are the people who I know can be the ones who win long term.
And that's the hardest thing, isn't it? Being disciplined. That's
is.
the hardest thing, to do that consistently over time. It's the one thing that, separates the very few from the many, is that discipline. Whether it's going to the gym or whether it's eating right, whether it's investing, it's all the same. It's a very difficult thing to do.
Right.
Let's
talk
about that, because I think that's interesting. Let's talk about how you manage stress, because I find that when somebody has a high net worth, right, they don't think in terms of percentages, or at least if they do, they think in terms of the gain in terms of percentages. When they frame losses, they're thinking about dollars, right? Oh, I lost $50,000 today, I lost $100,000 today. And the more money you have, the more the swings are, right? Just by definition, right? So how do you deal with that, man? That's not easy.
Yeah. So with something like that, if I know it can swing more than 10% in a week, then I'm very likely to not put more than 5% of my net worth in it, because I can't have my net worth swaying like that. I just can't have that. So if it's gonna, like, for example, Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is something that could move up or down in terms of in like a week. So then I just know that I don't want to see my net worth go from really high to half as high in a day or in a week. So then I just personally can't handle that. So then what I'll do is I'll only allocate a small percentage. So I'll say at any given time, if the market drops, a bad day on the S&P 500 is like a really bad day is like a 3% drop, right? You see a 4%, oh man, the world is coming down. But in crypto, that's every day. So then I know not to keep my portfolio, the majority of it, in something like that. So there's ways to manage your emotions on the market. And honestly, a lot of people are really struggling with that part of it, but it's because they are overly allocated towards something that they weren't ready for. Now, if I was to put in, let's say, I don't know, $100,000 in a Bitcoin, $500,000 in a Bitcoin, then I could handle that, but I wouldn't be able to handle millions of dollars of that at this current point, because then my net worth would be just weighing too much for me. Even though I would hold on to it, I just wouldn't want to see it. So you have to manage your position size. And then if you're going to trade things like little smaller tokens like Bonk token or Shiba Inu or Doge or something like that, then really just manage your position size and think ahead in terms of what am I willing to lose before I cut out of this. So let's keep it simple. Let's say that you bought $100 worth of Dogecoin. You expect Dogecoin to go back up to 50 cents. It's like 15 cents right now, and you're expecting that. And you got to tell yourself, okay, if I get in at 15 cents, I put in $100, I got $100 worth. If at any point my $100 turns into $70, my rule is I got to cut it. My rule is I just got to cut it. It just is what it is. And when you think like that, you go from a person who could lose the whole amount and get wiped out to a person who will only lose that $30 of your $100. Now, if you got $100,000, you might not want to lose $30,000, so you just cut it even sooner. So you just got to have that risk management amount, like he was saying, like dollars. Think about the dollars. You put 100,000 in. If I see this 100,000 turn into 90,000, I'm cutting out. But what if it bounces back? Now you're trading on hope and what ifs. No, that's not a good strategy at all. If you got to hope that it's going to come back, you're going to go broke before you know it, because this one might work out. And this is one thing that I say to people too. Getting lucky early on is one of the worst things that can happen to you as a trader, as a swing trader, as an options trader, because you're going to think that you got rewarded for bad behavior. And this is someone who was a member of KGU. I haven't spoken to him in a while. Who knows? He might be depressed at this point. And he had a $20,000 account. He put it into like some crazy overnight stock option that had like no chance of winning. And in 2 days, this thing was worth $2 million. So then he's like, Kenan, I'm a first time multimillionaire. And oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, first of all, you're in an option, so you're going to have to pay taxes on this. So remember that. And then I said, second of all, you need to make it so at a minimum, you never go under a certain amount ever again. Think about what that is. Think about the taxes, but then think about what that amount is. You never want to go under again. That's your base. And he said, okay, I can do that. I talked to this guy in like a few weeks after that, and he told me that he didn't have 2 million anymore. He was at like 80,000. And you know, going from 20,000 to 80,000 is great. But he had millions of dollars and lost it by being just so risky like he was with the 20,000. That same thing that made him take that initial risk and got lucky, he didn't have the discipline to keep it now. So it was almost like winning the lottery and then blowing through most of the money. So make sure that when you get into a trade, you know when you want to get in, and then you know if it isn't working out, when are you going to get out? So this is what I would have done. I took a crazy high risk. I put $20,000 and it turned into $2 million in 2 days. I say, all right, look, I got to pay taxes. I'm going to talk to a professional. Hopefully we can get these taxes as best we can. We'll see. But at a minimum, I want to be a millionaire forever. So if I ever, let's say I had to pay $600,000 in taxes or whatever I had to pay. Now I got the 1.4 left. Okay. If I ever at any point lose 300K, I'm done trading. I'm done. I'm totally done. I got $1 million left. I'm absolutely done. I'm not touching the trade ever again. But nope. Oh man, I put that 20,000 in. Maybe I can make this 1 million turn into 10 million. And then no, that was luck. Luck is not a good strategy. It's not even a strategy, especially a long-term strategy. Your luck is going to run out. And we don't want to trade with luck. Like I said, with the hat, you trade with the chart and not with your heart.
I love it, man. I think there's a lot of things that you're saying that resonate. Things that people get right after they watch your content. Like if you were going to say, okay, this is the thing that my material results in them changing, some trait or some behavior. What would you say that is? Is it the gambling mentality? Is it the long-term thinking? What do people walk away from when they see your stuff?
So what people walk away from when they see me is just a simple message. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. The 5 P's. That's what I call it. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. I heard this one a long time ago. There's a military version of it, which is like the 6, but we're going to keep it to 5. And you want to be prepared and not surprised. When you get into any kind of trade, you want to make sure that you have a full game plan. So when people come to me, they're going to get a full, complete game plan. They're going to understand under what circumstances would I get into a swing trade or into a long-term trade? And under what circumstances would I get out? And here's a specific example even. One thing that people do, and I've seen people get into trades and these trades are up 900% and then they lose money because they held on to it too long. So then what I teach them is there's simple ways to stop this. Let's say you get into a trade for $1,000. It goes up to $900. Or $9,000. You killed it, right? 9,000, 1,000 to 9,000. If you're up that much, and this is a trade, it's not an investment, you put your stop loss and just leave that order open. Just put your stop loss higher than your entry price. You got in at 1,000, put your stop loss at 5,000. It's at 9, it's worth 9. If this thing crashes down, it'll kick you out in profit instead of watching it just go down to 0. So you'll learn how to use the stop losses appropriately as a tool that works with you rather than against you. You'll learn how to be prepared on the stock market. You'll learn how to allocate short-term winnings to long-term investments. And you'll actually get to see somebody who trades in real time, win or lose. You'll see me lose a little bit, but then you see me win a little bit, and then you'll see me win a lot. But the rule is to only lose small amounts, which keeps you in a game long enough to win big. That's what people learn when they come over to me.
A lot of good lessons there, right, Will?
Yes, sir.
Kenan, for those who want to track more of your thoughts, more of your work, where'd you point them to?
Say that one more time.
If for those who want to track more of your thoughts, more of your work, where would you point them to?
Kenan Grace on YouTube is the easiest way to find me. You could also find me on Twitter. I'm at Kenan Grace on Twitter, but Kenan Grace on YouTube, this is where you're going to find my main platform, my main content. And I actually wanted to ask you guys something. So as people who manage money and help other people to structure their finances, how did you feel when you seen the whole GameStop thing going on in places like Melvin Capital losing all of their money?
We got to do a podcast on that, I think.
Yeah. Look, I guess as people in the markets, sometimes it's difficult to really understand that kind of phenomenon, so particularly not the short side. So the professional investors that were short the stock were short because of fundamental reasons. I know that some people will say that there was more sinister motivations, particularly that have come to light more recently, but let's just say that that's a professional manager choosing to short a company. I think the other side of it is tougher to understand, this phenomenon of buying stocks which from a kind of markets perspective don't necessarily have any, let's say, fundamental characteristics that would be obvious to professional investors as to like why it's a buy. So it's kind of a new phenomenon, or it was a new phenomenon to everybody, this idea that investors now can sort of come together on social media and buy companies, and that can have a big influence on the price. It's something that we haven't really seen before. So look, from a pure entertainment perspective, I'm a strong believer in free markets. I believe that people should be able to buy whatever they want for whatever reason within, as long as it's, sort of productive. But I think it ultimately comes back to this whole discussion that we've been talking about, which is about investor behavior, about psychology, about investing for a long-term goal. And, stocks like that, which are incredibly volatile, are typically not long-term investments. And people should stick to the basics of a financial plan, investing in a broad ETF, stock market based ETF, and having that savings and discipline mentality. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty new phenomenon for all of us, to be honest with you.
I am sincere when I say that we should do a podcast on that. Everybody, please make sure you follow Kenan. I'm glad we did this, Kenan. I'm glad you came on the show. I appreciate those that watched this live stream. And hopefully we'll see you on the next episode of the High Conviction Podcast by GraniteShares. Make sure you check out the GraniteShares Substack, graniteshares.substack.com. Thank you, Kenan. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kenan. Great conversation.
Cheers, everybody.